Shalom, brothers and sisters. I want to start this video with Zechariah 12 verse 2 because we'll be speaking around that very much. If you go to the New King James version of the Bible, which I prefer, behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. A cup of drunkenness. Okay, and now more than ever, all of you know that this can be said of right now and all the nations that are everybody trying to be involved with being in Jerusalem's business at the moment. It is a cup of trembling, a cup of drunkenness to all the nations round about. So let's begin with the Palestinians warn against Jerusalem Day. Jerusalem Day is on the 28th of May through to the 29th. It's when they celebrate the reunification of when they took Jerusalem in the Six-Day War. Palestinians warn against the flag march through Damascus Gate. Last year, rockets were fired towards Jerusalem during the march, despite the route being changed to the Jaffa Gate. Palestinian factions in the Gaza Strip warned Israel against allowing the Jerusalem Day flag march to enter the old city through the Damascus Gate, saying it will not allow the enemy to cross the red lines drawn during Operation Guardian of the Walls. Sources from the factions told the Lebanese Al Mayadeen News that they had sent messages to Israel saying they would not allow the flag march to pass as planned and would not allow the red lines drawn during the operation last year to be crossed. Meanwhile, Palestinian sources told the Al-Quds newspaper that the factions had sent clear warnings to Israel against holding the flag march and against allowing Jews to enter Temple Mount in large numbers on Jerusalem Day. According to Al-Quds, the threats were transferred through more than one channel, with the factions warning that Israeli steps in Jerusalem would have great consequences and that the march would not be allowed to go unnoticed. The factions warned that they would not stand idly by regarding what they called the continuation of the escalating Israeli aggression, which they said aims to drag the region into greater escalation. Now, a few things I want to comment on just here. Jerusalem Day, they're celebrating the capture and restoration of Jerusalem to Israel, but they're not allowed to go to Jerusalem. They're not allowed to go near Temple Mount. They're not allowed to put foot there because it's enemy territory. But it's theirs. They're Jews. Jerusalem is Jewish. And this is where it becomes a cup of drunkenness to the nations, with enemy at the gates stopping you. They're not even allowed to go onto the mount and pray. What happened to religious freedom, where all the faiths should be able to pray on Temple Mount? Christians, Jews, Muslims, supposedly. Now it's just Muslims. Nobody else is allowed to pray there. It's against the rules. Violence will sporadically erupt. What sort of a God denotes violence in a holy house on a holy mount? It's ridiculous. And you know what? For a long time, the Jews have let it stand, and a long time they've been defending this and even stopping their own people from praying on their site or going anywhere near it in large numbers, or even showing their flags in Jerusalem. That's coming to an end fast because the Jews have had enough. Israelis as a whole are starting to get to the point of having enough. The demand for the temple is growing bigger and bigger all the time, and more of them are listening to the far-right groups that are pushing for action. So this next article, Israeli far-right groups calls for dismantling Dome of the Rock on Jerusalem Day. Benzi Gopstein, the founder and leader of Lahava, published a controversial post online in which he called on Israeli settlers to unite on Jerusalem Day on 29 May to break into Al-Aqsa and start dismantling the revered Muslim landmark and pave the way for building a Jewish temple at Al-Aqsa Mosque. Jerusalem Day, which falls on 29 May, is the day the demolition of the Dome of the Rock will begin, Gopstein wrote. The Lahava group published a poster on social media showing an excavator next to the Dome of the Rock. In another poster, another excavator appears to be carrying debris away from the mosque. Translation on the poster, which you'll see on the video, I'll post it. On 28 May, we are coming to dismantle the Dome of the Rock. Some right-wing Israeli activists and groups such as Lahava have openly advocated for the destruction of Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock to make way for a third temple. Hamas calls on all Palestinian masses to mobilize and gather in the blessed Al-Aqsa Mosque to confront the occupation's dangerous Judaization schemes. So what does this tell us is that on 28-29 May, coming up, I'm no prophet, I'm telling you what I'm seeing and reading from the news right in front of me. There's going to be clashes in Israel, massive clashes. The far right are pushing for action, and Hamas and Hezbollah and those people, Iran, are all geared up. Iraq, they've all had their Jerusalem things where they burn Israeli and American flags, call for the death and destruction of Israel. They've all done that now in the last few weeks. They are ready for action. Action on both sides that's going to lead to a massive clash. Now, where that ends, I'm not sure. I still think the temple can be built without even building it on that site. You can look at the secondary site in the city of David. That's a whole different discussion. We will see where it ends up. But for now, the violence and the clashing and the insanity around Jerusalem and especially Temple Mount is biblical. He will make it a cup of drunkenness to the nations. Behold, I make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. This is a real thing. Watch what happens. 28 and 29 May is around the corner. This is going to go down badly, and we can only watch and see what's coming, but it's heated to a point that it hasn't been before. Multiple nations have risen up against Israel, regardless of whether they're in the right or wrong with the various incidents. A lot of the time, unnecessarily just being attacked. It is a cup of drunkenness to the nations. And Russia having meetings with Hezbollah and Hamas in Russia is hugely concerning, on top of the broken relationship that they have currently with Israel. On top of that, the current Israeli Bennett coalition government that's falling apart in front of our eyes. At a time when Israel needed their strength more than ever and clearly defined leadership, they're going to be headless without leadership for quite a few months. So it's really a classic setup for disaster on all fronts. So we watch and we wait and we see what's coming and we keep our eyes open. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem and the soon return of Yeshua HaMashiach. God bless you all. Keep looking up and keep watching. Keep praying for each other. Keep supporting each other. We are on the edge of eternity and things are happening fast. Shalom.